think I'm going to do here a little show and tell. When I refer to having problems with structural integrity on a larger base, this is what I'm referring to. I currently have it displaying structural integrity right now. Okay. You notice well, I'm going to show you a quick, oh, that was coming right out of the ground. I'm going to have to move a little more than I had realized. I forgot I had that one there. I think that one is probably just... yeah. Let's see if it'll actually give me the top of it, but not really. Got a bunch of dirt between me and it. This actually is one of the same base as some of the other ones spawned in here. Oh no, that's not what I really wanted. Come on, silly me. No. Find it is 53. I'm gonna destroy 53. We're in creative, so. You can see it was coming out of the ground. It was green there, but the corner was red, which is the same thing. Let's go for some altitude here, just a different corner as that one over there. In fact, it was, other than it being buried under the ground mostly there, it was the same platform. That is a 50 by 70 pad, with a little margin around the edges, but really, for the most part, not much beyond that. Well, other than adding the ramps, because the idea was that something could come, drive up onto it using the ramps. So if we go here, this is the base that I was originally trying to build. Currently showing it nice and red. You might just notice here a little bit there is some spikes all underneath the base. So let's go ahead and let's place it down a bit. The ground is sloped there, so if we, why do I keep jumping down? Let's place it right there. Okay. We'll inspect that in just a little bit there, and hopefully it'll be a good demonstration. But the thing is, I was having the issue with the structural integrity on that thing, so I went ahead and chopped a bunch of, I have actually more than one revision of that, where I chopped a whole lot of it just to see if I could get it to spawn correctly. With most of it chopped off, the stuff I have here, pretty much everything's chopped off. I spawned it here. I'm like, oh, I got it mostly fixed, but let's make sure it's repeatable. Spawn it again, and as you can kind of see from here, the much bigger section of it, probably a good third of it, from those two corners there, those two far corners, is structurally unsound. I'll show you here in a little bit what I mean by structurally unsound. It's as if structural integrity does not exist. It will still treat it in many respects, so they can go here, look at this one. Oh, it's pretty much right on the ground, coming right out of the ground, and yet it is red. So if I go here, grab a nice good block, and let's go stick it on the red. Let's go stick it on the red. Is it coming right out of the ground right there? Right out of the ground. Oh. That fun. Yeah. I guess it was close enough to the ground when I placed that one block. It took structural integrity from that. But what you'll see here is, even though I put something in there that it will enact the proper structural integrity. As soon as you remove those blocks that are filling in that gap, it never fixed the problem. There is no structural integrity there, or it's not working properly. And so let's go ahead. That is the base I was trying to make work over there. We'll just grab these SV so I don't have to walk the whole way. Okay. Now I want to say that this base was originally at one point a little more complete, but then when I started chopping and cutting it down, I ended up that the base, to get this back to see what the original looked like, I had to load a backup, and the backup I had was not as complete. So let's just take a look at what it looks like here. This is without the structural integrity being displayed. I have here a nice little hanger, a little tower, your little terminal and stuff. The pad is divided in, it's one big pad, being 50 by 70, but I did divide it into quarters because a lot of my starting capital vessels will fit into just 1/4 of this space. So, it is, it's quite a bit bigger than what I need for my starting vessels. This was not meant for the starting vessels. This was meant for a vessel like this one here, which is not yet done, being a work in progress. But the idea being that it would be a base big enough to bring in something like this. This is my Archon. This is one of the capital vessels. I really don't want to make it smaller because I'm not sure I could pull off these and make it work quite nicely. It might be possible, but I really like how these thrusters are here in a somewhat well, this is a little more traditional, but that in the pylon there, here in the that structure there, really giving it a bunch of thrusters and a non-traditional placements there. And other than these ones, probably are only 2 blocks apart. This stuff, and this is 2 blocks apart there, from side to side, being 4 blocks apart front to back. I do have some traditionally, but there is. I want to say that this vessel has no rear-facing thruster actually on the true rear of the vessel. So a lot of this is had a little fun with its creation. As you can see here, the artillery turret is in a nice channel here and stuff. There's actually another one on the other side. I haven't yet decided, what to do for a front window on this thing. This is just mostly a work in progress. This to be a bit of a battle cruiser with, I figure, the different placement of the engines in some ways protecting them, but yet also having them be truly exposed at the same time. Some hangers and that stuff. But the idea is that this that is a bit bigger of a capital vessel. I kind of like it. Hoping to finish it up sometime in the future. I have far too many projects that I've given myself, but that is why I am aiming for a pad of this size. If I can't get this to work the way I'd like down here, if I just can't bring myself to it, I may go for a space station for a conversion of this. So it looks like I have enough slope over here. If we look at here, there are these, let's turn the structural integrity back on here. You'll notice that these are coming straight out of the ground red as can be. Now here I can see there's a bit of a gap, little too. I probably should have placed it a little further down in the hill to really get this stuff. But if we look here, even the ones that are in the ground, they're completely red. Now one of the things I've observed here with the problem, so those, yes, those should be structurally unsound. These ones should be. These should be structurally sound. So I have a whole bunch of this base here that is structurally unsound. And the thing is, from my experience with this thing, even if I hadn't messed up here on the hillside, those would be this is about roughly where it starts anyways. Somewhere in this area that it will be completely structurally unsound despite proper placement. It just, there is no, as you can see, it's showing it here, this red, but I think it's not the deep red here, but I suspect that this is again one of those where it might as well not be there, not exist, because you see here it's nice and green. I think that we're we're borrowing, we're reading off that structural integrity right out to here where it's about to cease stuff. So this isn't actually adding to structural integrity at the base at all, other than the fact that it's coming right off of there. However, what I've discovered with this, and you'll notice that these pillars look like they're shaved in half. That is intentional, because if I go here and add a block, look, add a block. It has to be at the ground level. If I miss the ground level, so let's hit a couple more of these. So you can, so when I demonstrate the difference here, these ones should still, I'm not going to just drop the whole base. Look, with this one clear back here, it is clear. I mean, there's so many of these things coming straight out of the ground, and they're red as can be. And if they're not completely red, it's because they're close enough to one of the others. So yes, the base was built. As I said, I shaved these off for a reason, so that I can essentially just go here. Okay, well, I'm going to go. I've got a bunch of this here. You can see some spots that are still red in here, but I think part of that is because just the nature of, if these pillars were working the way they should be, I suspect it would. So in other words, if this actually was structurally sound of itself, instead of taking it from this side, from this one, I think they should be close enough. So again, it's one of those things, we're looking at some of this here. I've already assessed this. I mean, I got probably into the right area with these shaved off pillars. If I'm going to go and fix it up afterwards underneath, but I probably would need to have the pillars a little bit closer because structurally this side is not getting anything from the ground. It's only from the block I placed there. So I'd have to arrange these pillars as if this side of the pillar was the only part that really existed for structural integrity. So let's go grab one of these pillars and let's miss the ground. So this is the part of the issue is some of the time, when I was first playing around with this idea, I quickly run one of this down here. Well, if I'm not careful, when I went to click it, here's one that goes down into the ground. So I click it, and if I just missed, I went like this, but for whatever reason, might have accidentally shifted back up. But if I'm doing it fast, I might not realize that I wiggled my mouse back up a little bit. Oh, that's right. This one isn't totally. I need one sticking into the ground that's totally red. Well, this tip is hitting the ground. And there we go. So in other words, if it was totally red, but I missed getting it actually in the ground, I would just lose a ton of the base. It would be gone. Now a bunch of those they're still there because, well, I managed to hit the ground, and so they they work. And these ones, even though it's sticking way up above the ground, I'm pretty sure if I made sure I actually hit the ground, it would be fine. So I could probably... So at one point, the spikes on this were actually longer and stuff. So the idea of being, well, maybe if I just, because I'd had been on some forums with my issue with the base, and someone was like, oh, well, they just did really long spikes on their large base, and that fixed their issue. I did some really long spikes on this, much longer than these. I can't remember exactly how long, but I did them longer than these, and it seemed like, oh, it's working. So I made them even longer, tried it again, because it wasn't quite, didn't quite get the base stuff, but it seemed like it was more of the base. And so I made them longer, did it again, and it was back to the exact same problem as I had before. So either just I would describe it, my issue with that, with the longer spikes, would probably be like this one over here, where, let's see, let's turn nighttime so we're not seeing it too well. Change the speed, change the daytime. If you can see kind of over here on that far corner of this one, only that bit is red. So basically it was a little more than that, but when I had put the longer spikes on it, the first time I did it, it seemed to be that most of the base was structurally sound. Then I did it did again with longer spikes, and I was back to the exact same problem as you initially saw over there. And then, spawning it again with it felt like I got it close, but not quite. So having the large base has been quite an issue. So I just, one of the thoughts that went through my mind was, well, maybe I don't actually have to have the whole pad. I can just make a some sort of outline around here, and then spawn a capital vessel. I tested this idea out and created something really fast and creative that was cheap. Then went to my survival game and did some experimentation with my cheap thrown together demonstration of the concept, and I could not spawn a vessel unless I actually had a solid pad underneath it. So it just seemed to me that I either have to figure out this problem, hopefully fix structural integrity, or I'm going to have to reconsider my whole plan and maybe go with space bases for these larger bases to get in these larger capital vessels. Because I'm pretty sure that if I could have just at least spawned this in with a sufficient base, that especially with the newer, larger worlds I haven't played on yet, because I'm still in Alpha 7. I've just been, well, a lot of people have been playing out the experimental. I've been spending a lot of time doing, getting some more of my blueprints started, because I actually have, as much as I have all these various projects, incomplete works in progress stuff, I actually have a number of doodles of other capital vessels, let's say capital vessels, bases, small. I want to say there's a small vessel I have a doodle concept for that I haven't even put any blocks in here. I think all my hover vessels, except for the ones that will be inspired by Alpha 8, as I've been reading about the radar stuff. But other than those, I think all my hover vessels are in here. So it's my bases and capital vessels where I don't have all of them, at least started in some shape or form. And this, for the bases, having this issue with the structural integrity was very discouraging. I was initially planning to do 2 ground bases with 50 by 70 pads, and then 2 space bases with 50 by 70 pads for spawning in the larger capital vessels, so that each of my collections would have such a base. 2 collections having space bases and 2 collections having ground bases, so they'd all have these options, and I'd have my choice. Did I want to do a space base or ground base? Variety when I'm playing my survival games, whatever suited my fancy or this situation at hand. But with the problem with that structural integrity, how it just ceases to exist essentially. Those blocks no longer, they're there, but yet their structural integrity is almost non-existent. They're not calculating in structural integrity until you actually add something. But even then, as I can, let's go here, I can show, just as a reminder, some of these things I went and I added blocks to give the structural integrity. But these things over here, well, that's suspended in the air, so that's not a real good example here. But if I were to go to, say, this one here, only a minor break because it was close enough to this over here, so it's getting its structural integrity from there. That one broke off. I'm pretty sure if I start taking out some of these blocks that I've added and stuff, at some point a good section of the base is going to fall off. So these might be a patch, but even though the spikes were going into the ground, only the patch was actually giving it any structural integrity. The spikes they might as well be non-existent. Other than they exist there so that I have a reference of where to place the blocks and something to attach them to. I could just attach them right at the ground. But I'm kind of like this base, but on the other hand, having that issue with the structural integrity really kind of takes the thrill out of it and stuff. So there is a very distinct possibility I may be taking some of these elements of this and making it into some sort of space base and stuff. So yeah. Okay. Well, that's my little demonstration of my issues with structural integrity.